Hey, TGIF, Cleveland rocks, The Rock rocks, Friday rocks, AEW Revolution rocks, Robert Karpeles rocks, WE Creative _ish. Robert, how are you this Friday?
I'm doing fantastic. It's Friday, guys. We made it through another week. We are one step closer to AEW Revolution. We're one step closer to WrestleMania. We are one step closer to talking Billy and the CW. Thank you all for joining here today.
Yes, we have some fine folks here in the chat here. Got to thank everybody for joining us. We've had this week, Robert. It was some really good numbers we had viewing live and in tune for us. Well, good stuff to see.
Appreciate the growth.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover today. Obviously, we're gonna obviously preview AEW Revolution. Gonna talk SmackDown a little bit. Is John Cena gonna be at WrestleMania 40? Is he? I don't know. But you know what? We are going to start with Tony Khan's media call yesterday that I happened to be on. I was actually the second person to ask a question, which I was pretty surprised about. And I asked about Jennifer Peppermint and her role with the company, what creatively structure it looks like backstage moving forward. And the response Tony gave me was pretty interesting in regards to, it seems more still like a collaboration of minds instead of maybe her being like a primary filter for how the creative story gets told each and every day. So he actually named some people. He said he stayed overtime on Dynamite to do some creative discussions. Names friend of the show, Mike Mansouri was one of them. Jimmy Jacobs, Bryan Danielson, Will Washington, and others he mentioned. And then he said Jennifer Peppermint has been a part of the process, and she has been attending those meetings as well. So, Robert, kind of want to get your thoughts on something like that when it comes to her. That's the way it indicated. It was more of a collaborative process than maybe her being like a primary filter for him.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's how Tony wants everything to be positioned, that it's business as usual, and that his model and his methodology works. There is what feels like a very splintered, bifurcated creative process that they have in AEW, that it is all still Tony. It's what Tony thinks, it's what Tony wants to do, and everybody else is just sort of following his direction, bouncing ideas off of him. But at the end of the day, he is Caesar. He's Vince McMahon. He is the guy that all answers stop with. I've been on creative teams where it's more collaborative, I've been on creative teams where it's one guy's vision and you're all just hoping that you get heard. So it'll be interesting to see what had happened. They're working with great people. Jimmy Jacobs, very, very smart guy. Mike Mansouri, really brilliant guy. Bryan Danielson has an insane mind for how this business works. Bringing in Peppermint, who I know has a great relationship with Mercedes Moné, hopefully can add a lot to the women's division there. The hope is that Tony is able to pull his ego back a little bit, and he's able to listen to all of these voices and engage in a collaborative environment. Part of the challenge with AEW has been this siloed world where you have the Bucks and their vision of what they think professional wrestling is. You have Kenny Omega and what he thinks professional wrestling is. You had Cody, what he thought professional wrestling was. Then you had Danielson and Moxley and Jericho and his whole crew, and it makes for kind of a hodgepodge.
Yes, it does. And there's actually a new report, I believe, from the Wrestling Observer Radio. Brian Alvarez made mention to this about the AEW locker room and them kind of going against maybe what Tony Khan has in mind for the show when it starts off. Now, this is according to Alvarez. He says a lot of people are very frustrated because they don't find out the Tuesday until the Tuesday before. Some people do. Some people know what they're doing because there are a couple of matches usually advertised in advance, but most people are showing up the day of the show and finding out if they are doing anything or not. And it sounds like, too, that people are going against what he says, and Tony basically relents and lets them do what they want. That's according to Brian Alvarez. What do you think about that, Robert?
So I don't want to betray confidences. I don't want to reveal any information I'm not supposed to reveal. However, it has been brought to my attention, and I've seen folks at tapings who did not know what they were doing. They just knew, hey, I'm here. I don't know if I'm wrestling. I don't know if I'm cutting a promo. I don't know if I'm just here to take promotional photos. I'm just at the building, and then being told various different ideas. You're doing this, now you're doing this, now you're doing this, now you're doing nothing. That happens in wrestling. Number one, like that does happen across the board. What I can tell you is going into an episode of Raw, going into an episode of SmackDown, even going into an MLW taping, we had a show written out. We had who we needed there. Maybe because of timing, something needed to get cut, and that was the case. But you always wanted to have that information conveyed. And if you were going to be there, if you were taking your time and you were flying out there, there was going to be a meaningful use for you in some capacity. It has to be frustrating if you're talent, whether or not you know, am I going to TV tomorrow? And if so, what am I doing? They need that ability to kind of wrap their head around it and get in that right mindset. When you're not running house shows and you're not constantly working, it does take a little bit of a ramp up period. There's a little bit of like, you don't just instantly turn it on. You want to think through a little bit. You want to be able to really map out what it is that you're going to do. There's a relaxed atmosphere backstage with AEW and Dynamite tapings, Collision tapings, very different than the atmosphere that WWE used to have. But I think there's a middle ground that you need versus this very loosey-goosey kind of feel, Nom.
Yeah, RVD can attest to the good atmosphere that's behind the scenes and how he kind of liked it. He said he felt more comfortable backstage, being behind the scenes in AEW and stuff like that, and that kind of dynamic.
It feels like a Rob Van Dam sort of backstage vibe.
Well, and tuned to something else too that you mentioned. I don't want to betray any confidence either, but I've heard the same thing from some talent in AEW about like, hey, somebody basically just said that's AEW. Kind of that's what it's like. Hey, do you know if you're going to be at these tapings? You know if you're scheduled here? I'm not sure, but that's AEW basically was what I've overheard and stuff like that. So,
and for a lot of these guys, this is their first time working for a major wrestling company. It's all that they're used to. If you came over from WWE, or even probably if you came over from TNA, you're coming to it with your own experiences, your own background. So it's not to say it's right or wrong. It's different. And if it works for that talent, great.
Right. Yeah. There's many ways to do different things. So hopefully, what he said about creative, everything like that, they can just work cohesively. So everything is copacetic and gets executed properly on television.
Look at you, copacetic. A big word for a Friday.
I love copacetic, man. Hey, you know what? Do you like more pay-per-views, Robert? Because Tony also talked about that. Saying that he said 8 pay-per-views that they had this year, 2023 or in 2023. This year, he says 9 pay-per-views may be the sweet spot for them. Here, this is the quote that he said from the conference call. I want to be open and honest. I can see this year being 9 to 10, and I think 9 is a good sweet spot. I feel like that's about the right number. I don't want to make a huge change or increase, but definitely 8 was incredibly successful. I don't want to do anything totally different, but I do see an opening for 9, probably maybe 10, but 9 feels like a great number for us right now. I thought 6 was a pretty darn good number. Robert, yeah, is that too much? 9's a little too much for AEW. What do you think there?
Yes. Here's the reality of it. AEW, when they were running 4 shows a year, that was a solid number for them. That gave them a chance to build to make those 4 shows significant and important. They added in Forbidden Door. Forbidden Door was a unique attraction. Totally understand where the appeal for that audience would fit. The All In show, when they did it in London as a special show, completely understood the draw for that. When you are charging $50 a pop for these shows, and I believe that is still the price point. These are $49.99 per pay-per-view.
That's correct, yeah.
You're going to lose a large portion of your audience because they're just not going to spend that. The numbers that they get on the pay-per-views are very good, and I think with the exception of World's End, people generally feel they've gotten their money's worth out of an AEW show. A lot of them voted very highly by the Observer. Generally speaking, when you pay your $50, you're getting your money's worth because those pay-per-views are like 14 hours long. The problem is when you're running 9 a year, 10, let's say it's 10, just make math easy. It's 10 a year at $50 a pop. That's another $500 that you as a wrestling fan are committing to. On the other side of the aisle with WWE, you have Peacock, where you're paying maybe $5-10 a month and you're getting those pay-per-views. So it is a learning curve for wrestling fans. As fans, we used to know if you were a WWE fan, WCW fan, you're ordering that pay-per-view, you're spending $20, $30, $40, $50 a month to get a pay-per-view, because none of us ever had a friend that had a black box.
No.
None of us ever had to go to some doofus's house that you really didn't like, but he's the only person you know that had one of those boxes, and you were willing to feign a friendship with him to try and go ahead and get to watch those pay-per-views with him and his mutant friends. I am not thinking of anybody in particular, Nathan. But it's a very strange new world that you're in, because Tony is now going to say 9 or 10 pay-per-views a year. I want your $50, which means he needs to be creating matches and content that's going to justify that price tag for 50 bucks a pop. And I'm really curious to see what the AEW audience is going to do at a point in time where the numbers have been down. I think the momentum that AEW has been a little bit stalled of late. They do have some interesting opportunities going forward with some of the folks that they've snagged. I think Ospreay, that's going to bring in people. Okada, assuming they get Okada. Mercedes Moné. You're going to have Samoa Joe pretty well entrenched as a champion right now, putting some steam behind Swerve, some steam behind Hangman. You can rebuild and refocus that momentum. And I think it'll be interesting. Real quick, want to give a shout out in the chat to Blue Meanie himself, Ryan Heffron, saying, "Look good, fellas. Nice to see you in here as well." And then we've got Bucks in 04, $500 in nearly 7 years worth of basic Peacock subscriptions. Yes, $500 would be about 7 years worth of Peacock, which also gets you the fine television show Bubkiss, written by my friend and Russell Rose co-host Mike Lawrence.
How about that?
Here's an extra little plug for Bubkiss. But boy, you really mined this Tony call for a lot of information. What else did Mr. Khan have to say?
TK happened to mention the Meat Madness match getting replaced to the Egg Scramble match, and he actually probably gave a good reason. Because we mentioned, I think you mentioned it. All those guys were still advertised, as healthy and stuff like that were advertised for the Meat Madness match. But apparently, he had more in mind, including Miro and maybe somebody like Keith Lee. But it's been reported that Miro is hurt, and he said that was part of the issue, and he wanted to make sure the Meat Madness was indeed Meat Madness. So he put it on ice and instead went with this match scramble coming up here. So
I get it. Meat Madness, you want big, meaty men slapping meat. And speaking of slapping meat, today's show is brought to you by Blue Chew. Guys, let's talk about sex. Remember the days when you were always ready to go? Now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Go to BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, Dom, it's all done online. No visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You will be slapping meat in no time because Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code RUMOR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. No $50 pay-per-views here, guys. $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code RUMOR to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast and Dom's awkward whistling.
Thanks. I also want to have awkward conversation with Blue Meanie at Meanie Mania in Philadelphia at McCusker's Tavern. Go there. WrestleMania weekend. He's having a party there. So I want to talk to him about a little bit of Blue Chew. Blue Meanie, me and him and Blue Chew. How about that?
What you do on your own time, man, is your own. But you were on Tony Khan time. Any more notes, tidbits, baubles from the from Mr. TK?
Only thing he touched upon was the disciplinary committee and some Sting having an open door policy. It doesn't seem like anything concrete with Sting, but he's welcome back anytime. It pretty much seems, and Tony Khan was eager to potentially have him back into the mix if he so desires.
So we're already teasing that the retirement is not a retirement.
Could very well be. You never know. You know,
and look, there is a small part of me that would not mind if Sting got one last dip in the WWE pool. I think having the last match, the loyalty to Tony Khan, it makes sense. I was never a fan of how Sting ended things in WWE. I think they have the tools to kind of tell that Sting story from beginning to end, whether that is just, hey, we're going to do a documentary for Peacock. Maybe with a new Netflix participation, they could do a Netflix documentary and use all the footage from a very large chunk of Sting's career. I think we can ignore a lot of the TNA stuff. I'm sure he would want to ignore a lot of the TNA stuff, but to be able to use some of that old NWA footage, some of the WWF footage, some of the WCW footage, and tell the Sting story. If anybody can make that happen, it really feels like it's probably The Rock, who we know is already doing a Ric Flair movie. But I'll be curious to see where Sting goes. But Sting still has one last destination.
He does.
Before he leaves, and that is the AEW Revolution pay-per-view this Sunday night. Dom, where
preview it?
Yeah. What'd you think? What'd you think I was teeing you up for? You think that was your tease for the SmackDown preview? With the good talking the Revolution. We're teasing Revolution. What do you want to talk about? SmackDown?
Let's go to SmackDown instead.
Dom is not only the best producer in the business, but it was nice to hear an inadvertent Dominic DeAngelo cameo on the Arn show for Ask Arn Everything, where you were throwing a question at the Enforcer. So Dom is he's ever present. In addition to all the shows he's going to plug later on, he is going to whore himself out later. And I know you did another podcast last night, man.
Yes.
You're the voice of wrestling. You're like Jim Ross, except
shorter, bolder, more awkward, potentially.
Having worked with JR, it's a toss-up.
Okay.
But let's get to this. Let's get to this preview, man. We got a lot of stuff.
Yes, Sting and Darby Allin, obviously, main eventing against the Young Bucks for the AEW World Tag Team titles. Robert, we've kind of indicated maybe what we're thinking about this match. What is your bold prediction? Do you have one for this Sting and Darby Allin, this last match of Sting?
They made it it's like a Texas Tornado match, so there's a lot of ways out of this thing, ways to hide some of the stuff. Let Sting jump all over the building. I don't see Sting going out on his shield, even though I know that's what he would most likely want to do. But between them, basically killing his kids and then him talking about the passing of his father, he's not going to let the Bucks win. And then you get the Bucks as the EVPs, stripping Darby of the tag titles, probably making a new tournament. Let them do all their bullshit. But you're in North Carolina. If you're ending with this, it's got to be happy, happy, joy, joy.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the way to go. I mean, I'll make the bold prediction, say the Young Bucks win, because that's what Sting would probably want. And Tony Khan's going by the notion of what Sting wants, I think. So if he's adamant about that, he picked the Young Bucks to be his final opponents. I could just see them getting the win and then Sting getting a very, very epic send-off at the end of it all. We'll see.
I hope not, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, world title match, Samoa Joe, Adam Hangman Page, and Swerve Strickland. How do you see this playing out here, Robert?
Now is not the time to take the title off Samoa Joe. I think he has over-delivered as being a world champion. He has demonstrated a degree of maturity, a degree of consistency. He feels like an adult. He feels like a main eventer when he's in there. You can pair off Hangman and Swerve and get another bite of the apple with those guys in some sort of last man standing, coal miner's glove on a pole, tuxedo match at the next pay-per-view. And Joe has a lot of opponents down the road for him. I think Okada, Ospreay. I wouldn't mind another Samoa Joe Bryan Danielson match at some point. He's got a lot of runway for the remainder of the year. And if you're switching to a 9-10 pay-per-view model, Joe's a guy that can get over a lot of matches and a lot of matches very, very quickly. So as long as he stays healthy, I would ride the Samoa Joe train for quite a little while.
I agree. And yeah, I think that's the way to go. I think if you're setting Swerve up, if he doesn't get that title for a good thrill of the chase kind of aspect of it all, and a build almost like a Steve Austin in a lot of ways to when is he going to get that title, and you can kind of really position Swerve in a good light, and then ride that momentum of Hangman being a heel still. I think it's a good, they're setting up for a good position, and Joe's a good flag bearer for AEW and should be continuing to do that for a while, I think, too. Next up, Toni Storm versus Deonna Purrazzo for the AEW Women's title. Did you see this change in hands at all?
Oh,
okay.
What do you, no, I think the one consistent thing in this entire Deonna Purrazzo feud, unfortunately, is that Deonna Purrazzo is not currently well positioned to be the next women's world champion. They need a strong champion for Mercedes to go against. I don't see them taking the title off Toni Storm. It's too fun of a gimmick. Let's keep this thing going, Dom.
It is. I agree. You can't. It's timeless, some would say, I think.
I hate you.
Somebody else I want to be my father figure is Christian Cage, the TNT champion. He's going up against Daniel Garcia, Buffalo's very own. Do you see this potentially being a title change here, Robert?
No. I think Christian is another one who you've got a lot of mileage on Christian in this father figure role. I think Garcia has demonstrated that he is worth all of the time and attention of this guy can be something in the future. This match should be pretty good, but there's a lot of outs in order to not change the title here. I feel like they want to get another Christian Adam Copeland match out of the situation. So I would see this being a good showing for Mr. Garcia, but not enough for a title change.
Here's an interesting one that has been getting some weird build is the international title match, Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong. Obviously, we thought that they had the big match, the Texas Death Match with Matt Taven, which set this up, I guess. What do you kind of think about this, Robert?
I am dumbfounded by this entire storyline, this devil storyline. As I said, Ole passing, I'm just glad Ole lived long enough to see something eclipse Black Scorpion as one of the dumbest reveal storylines possibly in wrestling history. It sounds like the story they're setting up is these guys winning all of the gold, in which case Roderick Strong would win. I hope they kill this angle with fire. And I think Orange Cassidy retains just to make it go away. However, if Orange Cassidy were to lose, I feel like it's going to be because of a Trent heel turn.
Oh, interesting. Okay. How about this one? Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston for the Continental Championship.
It feels weird to say I don't care about a Bryan Danielson match. It feels weird to say I don't care about an Eddie Kingston match.
Yeah,
I think the match will be very good. It's just, it feels like a lot of we've seen this. So the stipulation here is if Eddie wins, Bryan has to shake his hand. Fine, let him shake hands and then go and do something else. I think part of the thing with Kingston, I love Eddie Kingston. He's a great underdog. He's the guy that you want to see fighting for the title. You don't need to see him being a dominant champion. So I can see eventually him getting that title taken off of him. I don't necessarily want to see Danielson have to carry around 3 belts. And yes, I will call those belts because those are not titles, damn it. They're props. And given how rough Bryan's neck is, carrying 3 belts could really hurt him.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I'm captivated. I love Eddie Kingston as a babyface. I love him as a heel. I love Bryan Danielson too. It seemed like just on paper, it's a great match. So in that respect, I'm looking forward to it. I guess just keep letting Kingston ride in this 3 belt thing. I'm okay with it too. Will Ospreay officially making his official AEW in-ring debut, I guess.
Officially official
against Konosuke Takeshita. What do you think of this?
Konosuke Takeshita.
Thank you. I really butchered that.
That was spectacularly awful.
Konosuke Takapoopa. What do you think?
Anyway, I think this will probably be match of the night. If depending on how this built, this could be a contender for match of the year. I think Ospreay is remarkable. Takeshita has that Randy Orton vibe to him of this guy. If he puts it all together, he's going to be something really, really special. I'm hoping this severs the ties to the Don Callis family, and we push Don Callis off an ice sheet somewhere, like in the movie North.
Oh,
That's right. A North reference in 2024,
wow.
guys.
That's
Do
an
not go
early
watch it. It's
movie.
a terrible, terrible film. This will not be a terrible, terrible match, though. I think this is going to be really, really great.
I'm excited. I'm excited for it. Should be almost. I think this should open the show because it's going to be so darn good. FTR versus John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli. What are you thinking of this one here?
Claudio Castagnoli.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's why I'm here. It's something about me and co-hosts who can't pronounce names.
I
It's
can't
just a
say
thing.
name. I can
It's
say your
fun.
name.
I'm glad. I'm thrilled. I'm glad, Mr. DeAngelo. This is a match that, look, we saw it on Dynamite. We're like, why is this match happening?
Yeah.
And then we got a hell of a match. So I'm excited to see the rematch here. Maybe there's a situation where FTR wins and Eddie Kingston wins, and this is the dissolution of the Blackpool Combat Club, because I think that's unfortunately kind of outlived its usefulness. Every time they're there, I just think of, William Regal.
Mm-hmm. There are standalone stars on their own. Very clearly, they don't need the faction anymore. I think it's past like sell date, everything like that. I'm ready for it to move on. Hopefully, this is indication. New AEW Dynamite set, all that stuff. Indication for no more.
Dom, I'm ready for you to move on. What's the next match?
Okay, I'm ready to go to. Scramble match. What are you thinking?
Well, the winner of this match gets a shot at the title. I have a feeling that even though they've changed the match itself, I think the outcome is still going to be the same. And I think Dre Owens in our comment section hit exactly what I was thinking. April pay-per-view. If so, Joe versus Wardlow. Given that Wardlow promo, it feels like this is a way to leapfrog Wardlow to being the number one contender, to set up that match with Samoa Joe. The only downside to that is that means we're going to get Adam Cole, someone less physically imposing than Professor X in his wheelchair, out there next to Wardlow. So maybe he pushes him off the stage like our good friend Matt Cardona.
Oh, yes. He's well aware of all that stuff. Okay, moving on real quick. We're low on time. I want to get to Billy and the CW here. We got a SmackDown preview. Rock, what do you think is going to happen here tonight with Cody?
Well, I think Cody's going to be there. Rock's going to be there. We're going to get a good tease, a good epic back and forth. I don't know if we're necessarily going to get the official announcement of what we're going to see at WrestleMania, but they're certainly going to lay the breadcrumbs. So I'm looking forward to it. What else we got, Dom?
Yes, we have the Cena. Is he possibly going to be at Mania? There might be a conflict in Peacemaker.
But, so John's a guy who'll find a way to make it. You're not going to have WrestleMania 40 without John Cena in some capacity. I'm guessing because he's going to be filming Peacemaker, he's not going to be doing a 20-minute epic, but a very short segment. I had teased, I think on either here or Wrestle Roast, I would not mind seeing them putting Waller and Theory in there against Cena and Batista, who most likely will be a Hall of Famer. Give a little bit of the here are some of the legends, at least legends who can still go. Let's see what happens.
I wouldn't be against that either. I wouldn't be against him wearing a Donovan McNabb jersey either. Bring it back. Bring back Thugonomics. All right. Hey, he might not be wearing a Cleveland shirt, a Johnny Manziel jersey, if you will. But maybe at SummerSlam he will. 2024, WrestleVote says it's been rumored that SummerSlam will take place in Cleveland, as hinted months ago by Sean Ross Sapp. I'm told through sources WWE is close to finalizing a deal with Cleveland Brown Stadium to host the event on Saturday, August 3rd. Formal announcement should come in April. Robert, what do you think about SummerSlam being in Cleveland, home of Drew Carey?
Home of The Miz. So I guess Miz is main eventing SummerSlam. It's fine. To quote Seinfeld's Asian, it's Ohio, Jerry. That's kind of how I feel. I'm not going to SummerSlam. I'm not traveling to Cleveland, Ohio, unless Conrad is doing something special and we haven't been made aware of. Like, want y'all to come down to Cleveland? It's gonna be awesome, man. We'll get you a house there. SaveAConrad.com. It's gonna be awesome. But Dom, this was awesome. This is the best way to start your weekend. And if you have a little extra time this weekend and you want to hear a little more Dominic DeAngelo in your ears, where else can the fine people find you, Dom?
Yes, if you want me to hear me mispronounce more names, you can try going to the One of a Kind with RVD podcast. I do a good job there, butchering some names. And then on top of it, you can also hear me at Magnum and Gagne, the Straight Talk with the Boss, Magnum TA and Greg Gagne. Go to GagneandMagnum.com for that. Hit subscribe, tune in wherever you get your podcast there. Also go to RVDTV.com to catch all the episodes, exclusive clips, all that and more. Finally, Road Dogs podcast is ending. It ended this week. I was the producer for it. There's rumors that I cried on that episode. If you want to see me potentially cry, check out Oh You Didn't Know, the final episode. It's a good one. So there you go. Robert, what do you got cooking?
Oh, I didn't know his podcast ended. So clearly I have to go back and listen to that. You can find my other podcast, Wrestle Roasts. It dropped today, Friday, with Scott Chaplin and Dan St. Germain. That's always a good time. And you can find us every Monday through Friday across a variety of social media platforms. We are on SE Scoops. We are on WW Creative _ISH. We are on Podcast Heat. Our folks who make this show happen, our friends at Podcast Heat. We're at Dominic DeAngelo. Also, on the ad-free shows and Rumor and Innuendo YouTube page, make sure you subscribe and follow on all those various platforms. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple, I'm sure it sounds great because, we hit Dom with a number of chairs to make sure this is fixed. And throw up a 5-star review, give us a review, makes us really happy. But I'm just happy to be here, Dom. I don't know about you, but I'm excited for AEW Revolution this weekend. And on behalf of the revolutionary Dominic DeAngelo, I'm Robert Karpeles. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
Sting.